This episode is sponsored by Hello Honeydew, a leading free utilities concierge service. Hello Honeydew is a free service designed to relieve the stress of a moving house, and it saves you time, money, and headaches on all your essential home service needs. We will hook up your gas, electricity, internet, TV, water, and home security systems in just one 15 to 20-minute phone call. You will also receive a free Amazon Echo Dot just for setting up an appointment. If you have closed on a house and have received your closing date, call us now for a free appointment and a free Amazon Echo Dot at 732-859-2019 and visit us at hellohoneydew.com for more information. Hey everybody, I'm really excited about this interview with Mark Regan. There is some bad phone reception about halfway through, but bear with us as this is one of the best interviews we've done, a very interesting story, and you don't want to miss it. From the studios in beautiful Oceanport, New Jersey, welcome to the biggest and greatest podcast ever. I'm your host, Ray K. Hey, this is exciting. I got someone here that I actually went to high school with. I think he was a year older than me, and we reconnected on Facebook. And lo and behold, Mark Regan is a published author with 3 pretty darn exciting books. And it's an inspirational story, I'm finding out, of how Mark got into this. Mark, let's get right into this. Can you tell us how you started this? I know you were in the delivery business. Start how you came about this first book.
Well, it was funny. I've always been the person that people would go to like tweak a resume or write a business letter or something. I was just kind of good with words. Mm-hmm. So, with that in mind, people always say you should write a book. And I'm like, well, yeah, great idea. When will I ever have time to do something like that? So, as years went by, life kind of has a funny way of getting in the way of things, and I found myself spending far too much time in pubs after work than coming home. Mm-hmm. And it got to the point where I got called out on it, and it was quite embarrassing to me. So I said to myself, I've got to find something to do to stay away from those kind of places. So I made the decision right then and there to go on to Facebook and just publicly admit what was going on with me, and then make a vow that I was going to sit there and write a book.
Mark, are you saying you had a drinking problem? Was it a functional alcoholic problem? Or?
Functional alcoholic, yeah. That's. I mean, there's no other way to describe what I was. Okay, and let's face it, you never get over it. So I would still say I am.
So you probably know the exact date that you became, sober, I guess I'll call it, right? A lot of, there's like a date that happened. Is that true? Well,
I started writing Operation Firestorm on July 5th, 2016. Mm-hmm. That's when it all came out. That's when I got confronted with my own demons, and I said, I've got to do something about this. Mm-hmm. So from that point forward, it took me 11 months to write the book, and that's exactly what I did. I came home every night, and I had dinner, went downstairs, and I just started banging away at the keyboard.
So the book gave you an avenue to deal with your other situation, and it gave you something to do and like a new start. Is that an accurate?
Right, exactly. Uh-huh. Exactly. I mean, otherwise I would. I made the public declaration that I was going to do this to A, keep me on the straight and narrow, and B, I was so heartwarmed by all the support I got from my friends that it got to the point where I couldn't have let them down by bailing on the project.
Okay, so it was the impetus of the Facebook friends that really made you do this. Without them, you probably wouldn't have written these great books, correct?
No, absolutely not. There was many a time in there where there's a huge gap in the plot line, or I couldn't figure out how to get two things together, or I couldn't get a chapter started, and I just said, geez, to heck with it. I'll just forget about it. No one will know. But since everybody did know, I had to go through with it.
So you had the accountability factor kind of hanging over your head, like the
Exactly,
teacher.
and that's you see, I know me. I know without that, I would it wouldn't take me very long to just say I'm just in way over my head and forget about it.
Wow, how cool is that? So
but the funny thing is, once I got going with this thing, and it got more than halfway done, I already started. I've already started to see the possibilities of writing a second book. But the thing is, and the saving grace of this whole operation was, during the course of writing Operation Firestorm, 3 different classmates of mine, independently of each other, got a hold of me and said, "Hey, I'm really cool with this idea that what you're doing. Anything I can do to help?" And I said, "Well, if you wouldn't mind, proofreading the book for me, that'd be great." So each one of those became an editor, unknown to the other 2. And I would send them, chapters along the way. I just kind of message them the chapter, and they give me their ideas and everything. One basically became my punctuation editor because I'm horrible at it, and one became my continuity editor because she would be the one to point out gaps in the story. And the third one, which came in late in the game, was my electronic media editor. And she's like, "Okay, here are things you can't do. We don't do anymore on the computer," because when I learned how to type, it was in sophomore year of high school.
So you had like a grassroots type of team, it sounds like, on this thing.
Exactly, and I still have these people to this very day.
Right. Well, let's talk about the, I want to go back in time in a little while, but Operation Firestorm. I mean, we're talking some serious heavy duty type stuff. I mean, terrorism stuff. And what was that motivation? How did you get into writing that kind of book?
Okay, well, they always say write about things you know about. Well, since I don't know anything about Islamic terrorism, I do know a few things about being on a cruise ship.
Okay.
Because my wife and I enjoy cruising.
Mm-hmm.
So I live in, back in that time frame was when ISIS was very big in the news. So I kind of said to myself, okay, radical Islam this, radical Islam that, and a cruise ship. I'm like, hey, wait a minute, what would happen if we put the 2 of them together? What would happen? And from that came the book.
Okay. Now you know about cruise ships. How do you do your research on the ISIS terrorism, or whatever you want to call it? Like, how do you get into their heads? Like what was that based on?
All right. Well, as far as their political motivations and stuff like that, I just kind of used a lot of literary license for it.
Okay.
But as far as the technical stuff went, I did what everybody else does. I look up Google and said, "Hey, gee, what's the how many Hiroshima-type bombs would you need to blow up an area X number of square miles and everything?" And my wife was horrified because she felt like I'd be on an FBI watch list or something. We wouldn't be able to fly again. It's like, here's this kook who's looking up how to blow up stuff.
So you had to almost hide upstairs to try to Google stuff, maybe, so your wife doesn't look. Yeah.
We joke about it now, but she's like, "Are you kidding with this?" I'm like, "No, you got to learn this stuff." Because, once I got into this thing, I figured I was going to actually sit there and see it through. There was really only 2 things I wanted to do with this book. One was to make it plausible. It's like, this thing can actually happen.
Right.
And the second thing was, and I was very adamant to myself about this, I was not going to allow my bad guys to become cartoon characters.
What do you mean by that, cartoon characters? What does that mean?
Well, it'd be very easy to stereotype Islamic terrorism as like Jeff Dunham with Ahmed the terrorist. I run around, I kill you, I kill you, I kill you. I was not. These people. There's reasons. They have their own reasons why they do things. It's like they're no. They might be crazy by our standards, but on their hand, they've considered themselves utterly justified in what they're doing.
Okay.
And then it became a matter of, well, once you got these people to volunteer to go through with this mission, then it all shifted over to the nuts and bolts how-to. So how do you get a nuclear bomb onto a cruise ship?
Right. Now, are these, I get the cruise ship, I get the whole thing. Are these characters, based on real people?
Right. Well,
tell me about that.
The main character, Sean O'Halloran, is based loosely on me because I didn't have anybody else to write about.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the rest of the characters came along, some were kind of like 2 or 3 people kind of put together. The bad guys were just the bad guys. I mean, I didn't know anybody really to kind of hang on to those guys with.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So I just kind of invented them. But I'll tell you, the hardest thing about writing that book was getting the names for these people. Because, being that I'm not an Arab, I'm not really kind of fast and loose with the names of these people.
Right.
And some of these Arab names are quite long. And I'm like, A, I'm not going to type these things, and B, I'm not going to expect the readers to do these things. So I'm like, well, how do you find these names that are like legit names? So first thing I did was right outside of Detroit, where I live, there's a town called Dearborn with a very large Arab population. So I said, I know what I'll do. I'll just look up online the Dearborn phone book and start pulling names out of the phone book. And then I did that for the first 2 characters. And I said, wait a minute, these are real people. That could be an issue.
Okay.
So I said, it got to the point if I needed a name, I would Google and say, give me the list of the last 10 Egyptian finance ministers, or the last 10 Turkish interior ministers, or the Syrian Olympic men's field hockey team roster. And I just say, okay, here's a relatively short name, first name, and here's a relatively short last name. I just put them together because I was asked to make a list of all the characters in Operation Firestorm for one of my editors. And I was amazed to find out there was 186 speaking parts in that book.
Whoa. Okay.
And I'm like, wow, I invented all these people. It's crazy.
Now, when you're writing these books, I mean, I've heard it from other writers. Like, do you feel, Mark, that you're actually intimate with these people? Like, they're actually real people as you're writing it, and you're almost sad when the book ends. Do you get those feelings?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. See, my mom was a high school librarian, and she said, once you set your characters. That's the hardest part about writing a book. Once you get your characters set, you can put them anywhere doing anything because you know what they're going to do.
Right. Okay.
And, once you have that in mind, it's like, okay, fine, what would Sean do here? What would Sean do here? I already know what Sean's going to do because I've already invented Sean. Now, new people, as they come in and out, I can have them do basically whatever I want to because they're basically bit characters.
I got you. Okay. You mentioned your mother being a librarian.
Yeah.
Let's go back just a little bit. Did you always, you mentioned you had this, I don't know if it was creative writing or you had some kind of writing skills. Were you a great writer, when you were in 3rd grade, or was that, you were a normal student, or when did this kick in, this writing skill?
Well, it's, I'm writing a book. I'm writing a collection of short stories. I mean, if I never wrote Operation Firestorm, I was going to write a book of short stories. One of the short stories I'm going to write for this book is my first, taste of writing success, and that was in 3rd grade. The famous beginning of the school term, "What did you do on your summer vacation?" report. And I sat there in class, writing up at Wildwood, and we went to Hunts Pier, and we had a first time on a roller coaster, super great time, the whole 9 yards. And I sat there, and I wrote maybe, for an 8-year-old, I probably wrote about 10, 12 pages of this thing. Every detail was in there. I hand the thing in, and the teacher gives me me to report back, and every time I went to spell pear, I spelled it pear.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm looking at this thing like, oh my gosh, just great story, but like, oh God. But that was really my first taste of big time writing, was to do that. And after that, it's just like, some people math, some people are good at geography and such like that. I mean, I can, for whatever reason, maybe because I'm Irish, I can put more than 3 words together to make it.
Okay. Now, when you started writing Operation Firestorm, were you rusty, or did you write all the way through in a journal, or just for fun?
Oh, no. I made every mistake you can possibly make as far as writing a book. I sat there, I knew how to begin it, and I definitely knew how to end it. In that book, I set out to write one book. It's going to start where a legal pad out, and I wrote sentences, and then I started, and I printed it up, and I handed it to my son and said, "What do you think?" He says, "Not bad, Dad." I'm like, "Good." And I was going to write, and at some point I was going to...
Oh, Mark, keep talking, because we're going to... You were fading out a little bit. I don't know if you were...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I wrote through into the legal pad, and I gave it to my son, and he said, "Look good." So, and then go back, flashbacks, how the were developing. And then I said to myself, flashbacks is cheap, trick. To sit there and write this thing, I'm going to begin at the beginning. So, as it turned out, my first time I wound up in the book being great. And then, when I was going to end the thing, the bad guy won. And the bomb went off, and that was the end of the book. Now, I wrote my book. Have a nice day. All 3 of my editors come back to me and said, "You're out of your mind. You need to write a sequel, because this thing is good." Mm-hmm. I'm like, "Well, how can I write a sequel if I blew up everybody?"
Ah, okay.
And they said, "You need another ending." And I said, "Are you kidding me? It took me 3 months to write this one." So I wrote a second ending, which was, the polar opposite of the first ending, with a happily ever after at the end of it. And I said, I'm not going to just let 3 months of work go. I'm just going to sit there and put both of the endings in the Operation Firestorm. So once you get past, the big climax for ending 1, turn to chapter whatever it was, and for the alternative endings, turn to this chapter.
Hey, I like that. That's kind of cool. Like an alternative ending to a movie. Yeah.
I mean, it's like it was apparently quite the thing in vogue, and I'm like, well, what the heck? I mean, you put the thing in. But then once I wrote the second ending, now I had my major characters back again, and then I can turn around and write Free to Wolverine 15.
Now, when you wrote the Operation Firestorm, what were the goals? I mean, to get it published. I don't know. Was it self-published? Was it hard getting a publisher? What were the goals going in, and did you accomplish those goals at this point?
Well, the goal was I was writing it when I started out. I was writing it strictly for me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had no delusion that anyone was ever going to read Operation Firestorm. So I put everything I could possibly think of in there. There were sex scenes in there. I put it all in there. I just threw it all in. Mm-hmm. And then as it got on, and they said, these ladies were telling me, you really ought to publish this thing. I'm like, well, I don't know about these sex scenes because my mom's going to read this book someday. It's like, you don't have to show something like that to your mother.
Right.
Well, a friend of mine, I was very big on Scottish history and being a Scot in general. She and I were chatting one day, because my mother was always talking about these bunch of books called the Outlander books. You got to read these books. It's about this person goes back in time, this, that, the other. I don't have any time to read books like that. But so I was talking to this young lady about, my difficulties about putting these scenes into the book. And she goes, "No, wait a minute. Your mother tells you about how great these Outlander books are, right?" I go, "Yeah." Says, "Those things are chock-a-block full of sex. Go for it."
Okay.
I'm like, really? Oh, cool. It was just waiting.
So you had the green light.
So I threw it all in there. I mean,
Okay.
What the heck?
Now, is this something that could possibly be a movie? I mean, is this, you hear about these kind of books going into, I could see this being a movie. Is that pie in the sky, or, you ever get any calls about that, or something you thought about?
Well, I mean, I personally didn't think so, but from the feedback I'm getting from the people who read the book, so I can definitely see this thing being a movie. It's very, they tell me that I write in a very A, literal, and B, visual style. They can see very easily in their mind's eye what I'm trying to describe, which is great because that's exactly how I write. I see something in my mind, I put it on paper.
Okay, right, like an artist, but I guess, is that like a painter with words?
Right.
Okay.
They have their vision in their head. They put it on canvas. I have a vision in my head. I put it on paper.
Okay. On the three books, you got Operation Firestorm, then the sequel is Free the Wolverine 15, and then you go into Pivot Point. Is that a trilogy thing, or is Pivot Point a continuation from Free the Wolverine?
As it turned out, in Free the Wolverine 15 was in the second in Operation Firestorm. There's a sleeper cell of jihadists over at the University of Michigan, and the mascot of the University of Michigan is the Wolverines. There's 15 of them, so they get caught at the second. They get caught at the end of Operation Firestorm in the second ending. They go on trial here in Detroit. So I figured, okay, write about something close to home. So I had, okay, we're going to have these guys go on trial here, and the world's most wanted terrorist is going to sneak over the U.S. border from Mexico, one of those trains that they're always talking about now that's in the news.
Right. Mm-hmm.
He's going to start off in, I think I had him start off in Venezuela, then he wound up in Cancun, then he comes across into central Mexico, gets on the train, and 19 days on the train, and he walks over the border in Arizona. He gets up to Detroit, and now he's got to bust these guys out of jail. Or is he? That's the point of the book.
Ah, okay. The three books are done, and I mean, you're working on a fourth one, a fifth one. Is this going to continue?
Yeah, I'm working on the fourth one now. I'm about more than halfway done with Extreme Prejudice. That's going to be Pivot. Let me go back a little bit. Pivot Point is I got tired of writing about the Arabs for a while. So Pivot Point is Ukrainian terrorists take over cyber terrorists take over America's nuclear arsenal, mm-hmm. while simultaneously the leader of the Ukrainian mob kidnaps the first lady.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
So all that's going to go on. In fact, I have a scene from that book. One scene set in Atlantic City, and one scene set at Rover Farms. So I want to give a little homage to Jackson there. Rover
Farms, Jackson, New Jersey, where where me and you met each other for the first time in 1976. Going back a little bit.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
That's right. So once I got that all done, I don't know. There's a woman that I know. She went to school with my older brother Dan. They were both class of 75. She is she sells Army Navy surplus. One of the few women who do. And I was fascinated by her story. And I said, hey, her name was Marion. I said, hey, Marion, would it be cool if I characterize you in my book as, somebody who sells Army Navy surplus? She goes, she was fired and everything. Let me put this. I'm going to make you right off the boat Irish. And of course, she's Irish too, which helps. I mean, with the flaming red hair and the freckles and the whole 9 yards.
Okay.
And I used her in the book with the proviso that anything I wrote about her, I sent it to her for her approval first. And she was all, hip to the plan. So here, Marianne became Bridget Callahan in the book, which was a great bridge between where I was going, and it's like it's like two legs of a folding ladder, and then this thing came across the bridge between both sides. It worked out very well. So later on, after I finished with Frida Wolverine 15, and I was writing Pivot Point, she was telling me that at one point, well, I think she still does, in fact, she takes in students from Russia, either from the Ukraine or from Kazakhstan or various places around Russia, and there's this program that they come live with her and work in America, I guess on student visas, and then after 6 months they go home and they can choose to come back, or she can choose not to have them back, or what have you. Well, one of these young ladies that was staying with Marianne stole from her home. And she's telling me the story. Well, I'm listening to this thing. I'm getting this whole thing put together in my head. I reached down, I grabbed my ever-present yellow legal pad, and I started writing this stuff down. It's like, yeah. And then she did that. Yeah, really? Okay. And I sat there. I took down with her story. I had the pen down. I said, would you mind if I use that in my third book?
Okay.
She goes, oh, that'd be great. I said, that'd be great. I said, well, guess what? Because you let me do that, you're going to get it. You're going to get a promotion. She goes, what do you mean? Says, you're not going to be a seller of Army Navy surplus anymore. You are now the first lady of the United States. Because
nice
this
promotion.
this girl who you just told me about, who stole from your house, is going to come back 20 years later and kidnap you. She says, how did you come up with all that? I said, I would just say, it just came to me.
These books you mentioned earlier, they needed to be plausible. I guess that this stuff could actually happen. After writing this stuff, can this stuff happen? Do you get more scared after your research? Like, wow, it's things can happen out there in the world, or do you get that kind of feeling like it's not as safe as we think, or does that not cross your mind?
Fires from what happen, and
Mark, you're fading out a little bit again.
I would submit to you that if you have a well-funded adversary with all kinds of time and resources on his hands, they can come up with anything.
Okay.
A lot of the things that occur in my books occur because people, on the security end of things, get lackadaisical in their security.
I see. Okay.
It's like the people on the port. They, things are backing up, and they're trying to smuggle. They're trying to bring this dumpster onto the cruise ship that's carrying the bomb inside of it. Well, it's not the right dumpster. Well, what's the difference? Well, a dumpster's a dumpster. You're supposed to have 9. Here's 9. Put it on the boat.
Right.
Rather than taking the time and going over it. But some of this stuff could happen. I found out when I was researching Pivot Point that not only the United States nuclear arsenal, but all of the IRS's main tax files on individuals are held on 12-inch floppy disks.
Okay.
Rather than those little zip strips or thumb drives you buy a dime a dozen at Walmart.
So it's easy to
12-inch floppy disks.
Which is what I get the feeling it's just easier to lose them or easier to someone steal them if it's a floppy.
Well,
disk.
the thing of it is, that technology went out in the early to mid 70s. And they spend more billions of dollars maintaining all this stuff than they do upgrading it.
Wow.
And I happened to see a little blurb one time on one of the news scrolls about they actually had this very issue, and they said the nuclear arsenal is set up on these floppy disks, and these senators or congressmen, whichever, were horrified. They said, well, how is this possible? Oh, none to worry. This is a closed loop system and you can't hack it because it's all on a closed loop. Whatever is on that disk, our computer back into our computer. A different one of our computers, but there's no outside contact with it at all because it's so old technology.
Right.
So here I am trying to figure out, okay, fine, how do you take over the system? And that's why I came up with a book. I don't know if that one's going to be 100% totally plausible, but it's close enough.
Yeah. Just a simple answer to this question. Do you think there will be a nuclear war within the next 100 years?
No.
No?
No. I mean, not. I would venture to say not between superpowers. You might have a
Right. Okay.
James Blunt's wrong. That'd be different than total flat on nuclear war. That would just
right.
They can talk a good. Everybody knows the world will end in 18 minutes. What's the point?
Right. Favorite author? Who's your favorite writer? I mean, who was your? Do you have any idols or currently? Yeah.
The two authors I admire the most. I mean, my favorite author is Isaac Asimov. Mm-hmm. I just like the way. I mean, my favorite book is his Foundation trilogy. I just love the way he writes. I try to emulate that style. It's a very, he takes on very difficult, concepts. In his books, he writes about economics. He writes about political science. He writes about history, but he puts it all together in a narrative that's very easy. He's an easy read. Whereas you take somebody like a Michener, he's not an easy read. Okay. Now, my other favorite author is Gene Shepard. He's the one who wrote The Christmas Story with Ralphie and Randy, and the one you see at Christmas 24/7.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
He writes in the very same way. He writes in he writes in a style that you see. It's a very visual style. You can see it, and once again, he's an easy read.
Right.
I'm not going to sit there and spend. One of the reviews I got on Operation Firestorm was, unlike some authors who can spend 20 pages describing a rainy night, Mark just says it's a rainy night and moves on.
I got you. Do you think the education system is educating the children correctly as far as enhancing their writing abilities? Or which?
I'm sorry, what was that, Pop?
The school system. I don't know the way you were brought up. Or currently, I'm talking currently. Do you think the kids today are getting a fierce shake on bringing out their maximum writing ability and skills?
I would say not. I mean, you're always going to have your exceptional kids or your exceptional teacher who teaches it to the kid. But from what I'm seeing, I mean, all you have to do is look at Facebook and look at some of the comments, and it's like, what is this gibberish?
Right.
I mean, you cannot construct. I mean, you cannot. I know a fellow right now who was inspired enough by reading my book that he is turned around and he's going to write his own book. And he is a product of the book school system. And looking at what he's writing, I mean, he's and by no fault of his own, but he's writing like he talks.
Okay.
Rather than it's like if you and I are having a conversation and I nod my head over and raise an eyebrow and looking in the general direction of a tree, hey, look at the tree,
Right.
When you're writing, you can't do that. You have to actually turn the reader's head to the tree. So if you don't, you don't.
Is there? Go ahead. Sorry, Mark. Go. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, the name of the game is, writing. There's a difference between writing a story, because anyone, as far as I'm concerned, can be a writer. That's not. People always come up to me and say, "Well, I can never do it." I say, "Yes, you can." The thing of it is, write it and then type it into a computer and then print it, hold it in your hand. Once you hold it in your hand, now you have something to work with.
Okay, get it down and print it out and look at it.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I do. I mean, on my my niece's husband set up a fan page for my books, fans of Mark Regan's books. And one of the times I took a picture, and it has the 3 books lined up on my table, and it's got 3 loose leaf notebook binders in front of it. And I said, that's how I write these books. I sit there, I write something, I write it down, I print it out, and I stick it in one of these binders. And then every once in a while, I go to the binder, and I lay it on the floor, and I reshuffle the deck. It's like, okay, this chapter really here, and this chapter will go better here, and here's a big gap here. This is what I have to write about to put these 2 things together.
Right.
Because some of these people who can sit there from start to finish and just write this whole thing in a straight shot. I don't understand how they can do it. I mean, they are much more organized than I am.
I read that Sylvester Stallone wrote Rocky like that in pretty quick order, for a full movie screenplay. Yeah, Sylvester Stallone. Yeah. I guess it happens. But, yeah.
I mean, it can. I mean, if you have a fellow came up to me the other day, another alumnus of Jackson High. You probably went to school with him, Dave Pilmer.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Dave came up to me and said, "Hey, look, I had got this idea for I've been kicking around my head forever. How about I talk to you about it, and would you write a screenplay for it?" I said, "Okay, let's talk." He comes up with an idea, and I said, "There's a lot of meat on this idea. I can sink my teeth into this thing."
Okay.
So he and I are going to get together and hash over a couple more details, but it's looking very much like I'm going to be writing this screenplay.
Wow.
But the thing of it is a screenplay is totally different than a novel.
Right.
Because a screenplay, all it is just it basically breaks down to whatever is on one piece of paper equals 1 minute in a movie. It's just basically the broad strokes. Just so you're trying to sell this concept to a producer, an agent, or what have you. I might go. He and I might go back later on after this thing is written, and actually flesh out the entire novel, because it's a great story.
Wow. Okay, so that would be a potential movie. This thing that you're working on with Dave. So that's something maybe next year. Well, we might have to talk about. Yeah.
I'm thinking it's probably going to take me. I don't know. I've never written a screenplay before, but it's going to be a learning experience for me. But I'm thinking, maybe 3-4 months to do that, and then what he wants to do with it, that's up to him.
Well, I won't ask you what it is, because I know it's in the beginning, but it sounds you're piquing my curiosity. That's for sure.
Yeah, once I'm at liberty to get into any more detail about it, from Dave, I'll be posting that on my fan page.
Okay, I look forward to checking it.
It is when he told me about this thing, all of a sudden I'm just seeing pictures and flashing in my head. I said, I can see this, I can see this, I can see this, I can see this. I said, Dave, you have something here.
Cool.
And he was like, that's what he said. Cool. But I thought it was a good one, but I really wanted your opinion. I'm like, yeah, you got it. It's good.
Mark, I call this section hit and miss. So I'm gonna say something to you, and then you give me the first thing or two that comes into your mind. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Gotcha.
All right. Favorite color.
Green.
All right. If you were on a desert island and you had to bring two music CDs with you, what music would you bring with you?
Neil Diamond's Greatest Hits and Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell.
Okay. Well, who's your favorite musical group or
Boston.
singer? Excuse me?
Boston.
Oh, Boston. Okay. Favorite getaway place for vacation?
Yeah, you broke up.
Oh, favorite vacation getaway?
Oh, God, the Caribbean.
Okay.
And anywhere in there.
All right. If you were in a foxhole, other than anybody in your family, who would you have in a foxhole with you?
That's a good question. What do you think? I'm on a foxhole with John Wayne.
Okay. And favorite athlete?
Ed Jockman.
Okay. You're a hockey fan.
Oh, yeah. Old Ranger fan from the way back when.
Okay. I got Eddie Jockman's autograph at Yankee Stadium in 1972 when I was a kid. Still got it. Yeah. I didn't know what he looked like because no one looked like with the goalies with the mask, you know. So I was he's just like a normal guy, but it's Eddie Jockman, you know. He had
to this day I can still copy his mask.
All right. Elvis Presley.
Gone too soon.
Okay. And Jackson, New Jersey.
It was a great place to grow up, but you can't go home again.
Okay, great. Mark, thank you for coming out. The 3 books are must-reads. You got Operation Firestorm, Free the Wolverine 15. What's the 15? I meant to ask you that before. What's 15?
Okay, it's the sleeper cell jihad over at the University of Michigan. And the mascot for the U of M is the Wolverines. And there was 15 of them. So when they were arrested and went to trial, the press called them the Wolverine 15.
Ah, okay. It's like Ocean 11 a little bit, like with the number.
Exactly.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then you got Pivot Point, and then coming up is With Extreme Prejudice. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. Great.
With Extreme Prejudice. That's going to be. It's going to be.
And then we got the
Pivot Point. Look,
Mark, the last 30 seconds were all cut off. I didn't hear you.
Yeah, we're still breaking up.
Okay.
Here we go. Now I got you.
Yeah. And then we got the screenplay coming out, maybe next year. So that's going to be exciting, to see how that goes. Since we heard it here first, our viewers heard it here first, right? That was Mark Regan. I'm Ray Kay, and we'll see you next time.